Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of making my Christmas journal, and today I'm gonna show you how I finally finished the signature. I'll also show you what I did here for the cover, so now it has a name. It's just called journal. And at the end of the video I'll show you the closure, which is very simple. If you watch the first part of this series of making a Christmas journal out of a paper bag, you'll know that I was trying to use the handle of the bags as a closure. I decided against that. I'm going to link that video down below for you to watch so that you know how I made the cover from a Trader Joe's bag and how I selected pages from books and magazines to create my signatures. So today I'm going to show you how I modified some of these pages to be converted into journal pages. So if you're a beginner in the junk journal world and don't have materials, watch this video because I'll show you how I create a whole journal without using any bought paper. So stay tuned for ideas on how to use book pages, magazine pages, any paper you find in your house in a Christmas journal. So let's get started. The rest of this video is going to be a voiceover. So this is voiceover me. Hi. I recorded this whole process throughout days. It actually takes me several hours to complete a journal, but I wanted to record parts of it. I actually recorded most of it, and I compiled and I sped it up in here for you. So the first thing I'm doing is taking that book page that has the Christmas tree and figure out how to make it a double page for my journal. So that page with the Christmas tree was actually the inspiration to make this Christmas junk journal. So I wanted to keep the whole Christmas tree in the page. I didn't want to fold it in half and just have parts of the Christmas tree showing. I wanted the whole thing. So what I'm doing here is trying to figure out how to hinge this page, these two pages. I'm using a music sheet to try to create a double page. And I'm gonna do it in a kind of untraditional way. You can hinge two pages together by adding washi tape or gluing them, overlapping a little bit, or using fabric to connect the two pages. But what I'm doing here is I'm gluing them, overlapping, so that the two type of papers mix in the same page, if that makes sense. I really like how the music paper looked next to the Christmas tree, and so I thought I would do this weird hinging. And I didn't cut that flap, that extra flap in the book page, and you'll see that later. I'm gonna make that into a pocket. So here I'm trying to figure out the correct size for my music paper, and there we have it. And now I'm gluing the pocket. So I'm gonna make this pocket on the inside of one of the pages. So it's gonna be next to the binding. There I'm showing you how it's gonna look like. I really liked how I did this. I've never hinged two pages together before, so this was my first time, and I was going with the flow, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do for this journal in particular, not following any technique or rules about junk journal making. I was just doing whatever I wanted to do. And then I added this ribbon here. This is a Christmas ribbon that I got at a thrift store. So I wanted to mention that everything I'm doing for this journal is using materials that are reusable, recycled, repurposed. Nothing is new in this journal. It's everything either papers like I've had for 10 years, like that green craft paper that I have there. It's literal trash, like the envelope that I use for the cover and the paperback that I use also for the cover. Or it's books and magazines that I've bought at thrift stores. Nothing in this journal is new. So if you're a beginner and you don't have materials, I'm here to tell you that you can find Christmas stuff everywhere. So next week, we're gonna be working on some ephemera, and I'm planning to use a lot of free catalogs to make the ephemera for this journal. So it's gonna be more free stuff. So I'm stamping there. Even that stamp was given to me. It's a kid stamp. It's a pine tree, and I didn't buy it. Someone gave it to me. It's used, but it works fine. And I just did that stamping on that green craft paper. Then I have this piece of the Trader Joe's bag that I used for the cover. And I just cut it to size. And here I have this wrapping paper that it's very old. I don't know how old this paper is. I mean, not vintage old, but I've had it for years. It's been in my stash of papers. I have a plastic container with papers that I've been collecting throughout the years for no reason, just because I like paper. So whatever nice paper I find or whatever caught my attention, it goes in that box. So this is another wrapping paper, again, the same old. I actually have newer wrapping paper from like maybe last year or so, but I had that in the basement and I didn't want to grab it. This was in my craft room. So all I'm doing here is using that coffee dye page as my template for the size and just folding and trimming to size. That's another page from the same book where I got the Christmas tree page. And I'm just gonna fold it. And you said fold it in half. And here I'm showing some of the magazine pages that I've previously selected that are not gonna be pages in the signature. I'm gonna use them for ephemera. And those two pages that are scenes, like winter scenes, they came in a vintage magazine. I think this magazine is from the 60s. It's a craft magazine. It's the same magazine where that page I have right there comes from. I think it's called American Crafts or something like that. So that page is showing how you can frame those other pictures to create nice framed images. So for this one, I decided to fold it in half and have a more skinnier page and to create a pocket because it was too long and I didn't want to cut it. So I'm just punching here to create the notch, and that's gonna be my pocket. I could have saved those coupons now that I'm looking at them. There I'm showing you the pockets and it works fine. So that's all going to be part. That one, it's from the same magazine. It's gonna be for ephemera making. And then I have this page from Highlights magazine, also from the 60s. I believe this one is actually 1960. And the paper feels very old. And I decided to make another skinny page with that one and make another pocket. So I was folding it up to create the pocket when the paper ripped. It's so old and it's falling apart, so I'm not gonna make a pocket for that page. I really didn't want to fold it the other way because I wanted to keep the snowman. And there I was showing you more ephemera that we're gonna work on it. in the next video or two. I don't know how many ephemera making videos I'm gonna have for this journal. These are all the Wreath pages that I got from my Wreath book. It's another book that I bought secondhand. And that page right there, it was the middle of the signature. So I was able to take the 2 pages without compromising either. And I wanted to use the whole page because it has beautiful wreaths. So there I'm scoring to have an idea where to fold. So I'm using again my page template. And I'm just folding it and see how this one's gonna look like. I really want to have that whole Christmas wreath to be almost completely visible, but it's so big that there is no way that I can keep it all in one page. And then here I was trying to figure out what I do with the bottom. I didn't want to fold it, and so I just started trimming it, and I decided that that page is just gonna be like that. And because this page was the middle page of the signature of the book, and I remove it whole, you can see that it has the holes from the binding. So I'm covering that with washi tape to reinforce that part of the paper. I could have actually covered the back too, but I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to interfere with the wreath. But it works fine as it is. I don't have any craft material that is Christmas related or Christmas themed. So that washi tape, it's not a Christmas washi tape, but it works because it's gold and I have a lot of gold things in my journal so far. So that's another wreath page that I just folded in half. The thing that I really like about this journal is that it's very different. Every page is different. Okay, so I have that very cute little wreath, and I decided to use that in the cover of my journal because my cover doesn't have a front piece. So I'm gonna create a front piece with that wreath. And then I wanted to use the rest of this page because it also has Christmas wreaths. And I was here trying to figure out how I'm going to keep that page, but I decided to cut that flap and have a very tiny page, which, as I said before, I really like it because although a lot of these pages came from the same book, they all look different because I cut them all different. And here I'm looking through some more of my wreath pages. That one's gonna be ephemera, and I have 3 more to work with. I really like all of these wreaths and I wanted to use all of them. So for this one, I'm gonna make another thin, skinny page. So I'm folding it in half because I really wanted to keep that pine cone wreath in the inside hole. You're not gonna see it whole when you open the journal, but I didn't want to cut through it. And with this one, I wanted to do something similar. So I'm gonna fold it lengthwise, but instead of doing it in half, I'm gonna create a smaller page in one side and like that, so that the other page is whole and you can keep the whole wreath on the other page. So these are all different ways that you can modify your pages to create your signatures. My main goal here is to keep the images. So that wreath there was adorable. It has a family of birds. So I went through my dyed paper stash to see what I have to kind of hinge that page to other papers. And I'm also selecting other papers that I'm gonna be using in my signature because I also want to have some more plain papers, that it's not just books or magazine papers, something that you can actually write on. And so I keep looking at this and trying to figure out how I'm gonna do this. How do I keep that whole wreath with the family, their family, on the page? So I decided to do something similar to what I did in with the first page. So I'm using that coffee dyed sheet music and I'm gluing it. So I'm gonna create a bigger page now. But you can see that that's not long enough. So I'm gonna add a different type of paper and kind of do a collage. So this is gonna be a collaged hinged page. Very different. I've never done anything like this before, but I actually really like it. So that pinkish reddish paper I'm using there, it's also coffee dyed paper. But when I dyed this paper, I also dyed some color copy paper that it was like flyers that my son brought from school. So there was one red, and I dyed that red paper as well. And when I put it on top of that white paper, the color from the copy paper transferred. And that's what happened. So I have both coffee dyed and red dyed. It was very cool. I actually want to try doing that again, but more in purpose, because that was accidentally. So here I'm trying to trim the page to size. It's gonna be hard to do it because, as I said, I want to keep the wreath and all the birds, but it is too long and too wide. And I did this a few times where I put it and I tried to decide if that was the correct size, and it was never the correct size. So I kept going. Even now, like for now, I rested and I said, okay, that's fine, but you'll see how I'm gonna go again and keep trimming my page. So I have those long pages that are way too long. I decided that I wanted to have pages that are longer than my cover, but those were way too long. So I trimmed them some more. This is why it takes me so long to create a signature, because I'm not using plain paper, and not every paper is the same size, and I have to keep playing with it until I'm happy. So here I'm folding some of the dyed paper I got to add to my signature. That's a map that I got from an atlas that I bought also secondhand at the same thrift store where I buy everything. And so I'm trimming it to size. The paper was a little bit damaged, so I'm trying, I ended up with a small piece of the map. So now I'm using the same washi tape to reinforce the middle of the page, because as I said, this paper was a little bit damaged and delicate. So using that to reinforce the fold so that when I bind it, I don't break it like that. Washi tape, it's a great tool. Now I'm folding this green dyed page that I dyed with tissue paper. This is something that my son and I did together. It was fun. You just put pieces of tissue paper and then spray some water and let the dye flow from the tissue paper to your paper. And this is a coffee dyed paper that has some stenciling, that it's not perfect. This is my floral stencil, but the impressions on this one is not great, and that's okay because this is a Christmas journal, not a floral journal. And I decided to create a pocket with that page, so I'm folding like a fourth of that page up to create the pocket. And then I'm gonna add that ribbon in there after I ink, like that. That's also ribbon that I bought at the same thrift store. As I said, nothing here is new, just my glue. The glue is the only new thing, and the scissors. So I'm adding the ribbon, and then I'm gonna take all of this to my sewing machine because I want to sew around the ribbon and sew the pockets as well. So here I'm showing you what I did with the cover. This is like a few days later. So I took that wreath, that small wreath, and I fussy cut it, and I made a banner using paper from the Trader Joe's bag, and then I stamped journal on it. I also used my gold pen to make those gold dots, and I'm gluing that banner on the wreath. There we go. Oh, and the banner I also sewed around, and now I'm gluing it to my cover, and I think it looks very pretty. It's so simple. I didn't want to cover the houses, but I felt like it needed a piece in the front. And there I showed you all the strips that I generated trimming my pages, and I took all of those strips to my sewing machine and I created paper ruffles. Paper ruffles are very easy to make if you have a sewing machine. I learned this from Natasha from Treasure Books. If you want me to do a tutorial on it, let me know. You do need a sewing machine. I guess you could sew by hand, but that would be a pain, a literal pain. And I really love using these paper ruffles to decorate my pages, to put them on the edges of the pages or on pockets. It adds something different and it's so easy, and you just make it using your leftover strips. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm gluing it to that wrapping paper. So I'm gonna put one strip on each side, and it's it's actually very good for the paper because this paper was very thin and flimsy, so it adds some weight, and now it just everything makes more sense to me to have that on the edge. I really love it. And then what I'm gonna grab now, oh, I'm then trying to figure out how this is gonna look, and I'm testing this again. I decided at this point that I wanted my pages to also be wider than my cover, and I wanted the ruffles to kind of poke through my pages like that. And I have that very wide ruffle, and I'm gonna add it to this piece of paper bag. That part right there has some glue from the handles of the bag, so I wanted to add the ruffle in a way that would cover a little bit of that glue, but also to kind of go over the page to make it look like my journal is overflowing. And then the other piece of that wide ruffle that I had left was smaller, was shorter, so it doesn't cover the whole edge, but that's totally okay with me. And look at that. I love how that looks. And here I'm trying to figure out my signature. This is something that takes me a while. I go one by one, a few times, I check. I didn't include all of that process here, otherwise we would be here forever. But I continue to go and decide what I'm gonna do with this page. This page in particular, I'm gonna keep trimming it because now that I put the ruffles, I don't want to cover the ruffles with that paper. So I keep trimming it until I can see the paper ruffles from the other pages. And those can also be visible from the outside. Then I noticed that some of my pages are too long. But then I took all of my pages to my sewing machine and I did a lot of sewing. Not every page has sewing, but a lot of them has it, and I'm showing you there. I use a very light gold thread, and my bobbin thread, it's a cream color, so it's very subtle, but it's there. It adds something. It adds a texture, And I like it that it's subtle because all these pages are all colors. So I like that it has something extra without being too overwhelming. So now comes the fun part. Not fun, it's not fun. The binding. I decided to do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I have this template that I made when I taught myself how to do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. And I put it in my cover and I go with my awl and I just poke holes through the holes in my template. And now I went through all my pages to crease them because it just felt like it was too chunky and I needed to crease the pages to make it a little bit flatter because I knew that this was gonna be hard. I knew it. It was very hard. So I ended up having 22 pages and only one signature. And I was in love with every page and I didn't want to eliminate any of them. So this is just one signature with 22 pages. And I'm telling you, don't do that. That's too much. Don't ever make a signature with 22 pages. I think 15 would have been fine. 22, way too much. It was way too bulky. But I kept telling myself, it's gonna be okay. So then when I have all the pages creased and at the right length that I want them and the right position, I clip them together. Then I grab that mustard goldish kind of thread and I'm gonna use that for the binding. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm doing a 5-hole pamphlet stitch because I have pages of all sizes. And I feel like if I have a journal like this with smaller pages, if I do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, it's not gonna be enough. Some of the pages are only gonna be bound once, and I don't like that. So I put my template in the middle of my signature, I clip it, and then I go and I poke the holes through the same holes in my template. And so this is what you would do for any type of binding like this, that it's when you do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, you would do the same thing basically. And here I'm attaching my signature to my cover with my paper clips, and I'm gonna go through the same hole. I'm gonna start at the top, and that's went there very easily, and this is when the problem started. I realized that it was my signature was too thick and the needle wasn't going through. So I did all of that off camera because it was taking me too long. So I did the first portion of it. So basically when you have a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, you go through, you start in the inside, then go to the outside and then back to the inside and then back to the outside again, like kind of creating a nest shape, and you do that through all of your holes. And then you go back, going through the same holes in and out of your journal. And because I started at the top, I finished at the top, and I wanted to do this because I wanted to leave extra thread to create a dangle on the spine. But I forgot that some of my pages were longer than my cover, so that wasn't gonna work as I expected it would. You can start definitely at the center or at the bottom, and you just do the same process. So there I realized that it wasn't gonna work, so I ended up cutting it. I could have left it like that, but I didn't like it. So I don't know if this journal is gonna have dangles. So far there is no dangles in the journal. I can still attach it in a different way. So here I'm going through all my pages and I'm in love. I'm not a Christmas person, but I'm so happy with this journal. It just makes me happy because it's so grungy and it's so, I don't know, junky. It's a junk journal. It's an actual junk journal, and it has so many textures and colors, and it sounds pretty good actually. So I really like the soft cover of this journal, and I don't know, it just makes me happy. It's a sensory experience. it's it's a sensory. I think I would call it a sensory journal because it has so many things, and I cannot wait to start making ephemera for it because that's gonna make it even more fun. So now I'm gonna add the closure, which is this piece of ribbon that I'm passing through my binding, and that's it. That's the easiest closure that you can ever make. So thank you for watching, and I hope I see you next time soon. Bye.